Okay, I'll go ahead and get us started. And I'm sure we'll have some others join us. I want you, if you guys would, to go down to week 12. And what you have, I just uploaded them for everybody down there. There are two files. The first one, and let me grab my annotation tool since I'm all about that now these days. This file, 16A and Lunch's database 17 and Lunch's database 17A and Lunch's database 18 are there. And so if you had a file and you decided to upload it and when we worked on it, that's fine. If you had not, you could take this look at it and upload both of these, for the workshop credit. And they basically walk you through 16 again, as I mentioned, walks you through processes of using cross-tab queries. We did joins, self-joins, and all that business. And it would be up to you, if you wish, to go ahead and look through the rest of the chapter. I don't know. Well, there are just so many. With Access, you're just so limited in what you can do. And I really believe that if you want to do a little bit better level of analysis, you might as well go ahead and export what you've got into Excel and then use the pivot table. The truth is you're probably going to have an application like a SAS Visual Analytics, maybe SAP, maybe Oracle, maybe some other product that will let you do that if you wish. So I don't want to fool people and think you can't use those. Let me go back here and I'll erase that real quickly. Where's my little eraser? There you are. Now, again, you'll notice I have Lunch's database 16A, and you can look in there and see the code and see how it corresponds to what's in the text. And then Lunch's database 17, and then I do the same thing with 17A and Lunch's database 18. So we're going to take a look at chapter 17 today, and primarily because I think it has, and I stopped as short of working with 16 because you really felt like you've got some better tools you could use to do those types of tasks, but I also want to have some time to talk about production tables and what we do with those, and then also to walk everybody through what we've got coming up. Now, of course, this week, of course, we're at the 30th, and today obviously is the 1st, and we've done 13 and 14, and I think we had worked on 15, so you should have uploaded that. And I'll find something to throw up there in case somebody wants something to look at. When I put these key files up there, understand something. Over the years as I teach this course, and I use this text because I think it's the best I can get at this point, I'll work on some queries and I won't work on others. And I do that on purpose just to kind of see it, to provide you a variety of them. So if you were to see a key from Lunch's database 15 this semester versus next, I'm probably going to cover some different things. The author tries to walk you through progressively as if you're learning a language where you learn a word, you put together a phrase, sentence, etc. You understand what I'm saying? So I may throw a key file up there for people to take a look at. Now, so that's today, and like I said, we're working ahead for a simple reason. On the 6th, which is 2 weeks from today, on the 6th, which is 11/8, a week from today, my apologies, there's no class. You've got flex time. Now you say, what do you mean by that? Well, here are some projects that I want you to, that I'm going to ask you to do, okay? And I'm going to give you some class time to do those. Now, these exercises out of the Sharda text are pretty self-explanatory. And when I talk about the Sharda text, that's this text on business analysis. business intelligence. I'll get my brain straight one way or the other here. But the bottom line is, these are things that they're due, and they should be fairly easy for you to blow through them. And you've got to check your understanding. Now, in each of the chapters of the book, okay, you've got, and I've got the pages for them in the chapter, you have one of these check your understanding exercises. And if you go, and so we're over at chapter 17 for a moment, I'll find this one. And my luck, there won't be one. Of course not. All right. Go back to 16. But as you come across these in the chapters, I have the pages for them. What's the last page? 15. Page 586 shows you a check your understanding. Now, at the bottom of page 586, they give you a query or a view creation or a table creation that they want you to perform. So it'll be your job to go ahead and take that verbiage and put it into a query and execute the query or whatever you're asked to do there. In that case, you're given, and you're always given the tables, and they're going to ask you to list the last name, the first name, and the hire date of all the people in that employee's table. Then divide the hire date column into two columns, one called old timers for people hired before the year 2000, and one called new hires for people hired after that year, and then sort the result by last name. Now, let me say this: if there are going to be two ways for all of you that you're going to be able to do these. One, some of these are going to be so simple that you ought to just go ahead and go into the graphic user interface and do it. Okay. The others, you probably will want to write it using the SQL and just directly entering the code. It's just going to depend upon those. But these are the check your understanding, and there's the page and the chapter they're from. And what you're going to find, as we did when we worked through the course, is you're going to find a lot of these are going to be embedded in some examples or similar kinds of business cases, meaning instructions that you're asked to do. So I think as you look through, say the one on page 41 or the one on page 46, you're going to find it's embedded in some discussions of some different aspects, maybe using a having clause, whatever. Okay, so that's the first one. That's a project and that's due. That's due. I need to see when do I have that? Yeah. That's probably the due date. And let me see when I have it due. Okay. I think I have it due a little bit later there. Not that week. Okay. Yeah. I have it due the week after Thanksgiving. Okay. You'll notice you got a Thanksgiving holiday coming up. All right. And then I give you some more flex time immediately after that. But the flex time for that week, really, if you stay on schedule, would be to work on the final exam. So I'm giving you some flex time to work on some of these projects, and then you're going to have Thanksgiving interspersed between them, and then week 14 you'll have flex time to work on the finals. And I've got some projects for you, so I'm trying to that's why I'm working ahead here, so I can give you some time to do a little bit of work on these and use some class time to do them. Now, there is an alternative to this, check your understanding, and I'll open it up and visit with you about that. This is the Oracle and assignment instructions, and if you go back, I think it's Appendix A in your textbook. Okay, they'll walk you through. Yeah, it's Appendix A. They will walk you through the steps to download a baby copy of Oracle to your machine. So if you have your own computer, you can do so if you want to have the experience of, and it's not a bad exercise because they walk you through you get a good look at Oracle and a good feeling of how it operates and what the environment, what the graphic user interface, what that environment looks like. So if you want to have the advantage of being able to go into a potential employer and say, hey, I've worked some with Oracle, you wouldn't be lying because you're going to be downloading it and doing some things with it. But again, it's a baby copy. And if you do that, all of those instructions are over there in Appendix A. And of course, you do so at your own risk because you're going to be downloading some stuff from them, but you can get a free copy of it. Now, the author says how to get your free copy, free. Let me says again, what you're going to see, and they call it the Database Express Edition, and what that really means is it's kind of their try it before you buy it edition, and it's a way for them to introduce you to it, and you'll get a good look at it, at all of the tools in it. What you're going to find is some great similarities with Access, and if you're comfortable with Oracle, then you'll probably be comfortable with anything you work with or any kind of hybrid tools that are coming out now. And again, I give you the full set of instructions, okay? And I'll ask you to provide me some print screens, okay, of what you did. Now, you can't do this on university devices, so if you come in the lab and you do it, and the IT police show up at the door ready to handcuff you and take you away, don't say you weren't told what might happen, okay? But if you do it, you can show me the screenshots, and then you can always, if you wish, get rid of the application. That would be up to you, okay? So I want to let you know there was an alternative to those check your understanding assignments. And let's see what else we got going on here now. I have an assignment to let you get a little bit of work with SAS Visual Analytics. And so a little project on that. And I've got some print screens for you where I will walk you through. And you can see all of this over at Teradata University. Now, I'm more interested. Now, I give you a series of tasks to perform for a simple reason. Number one, I want you to kind of crawl around the thing and figure what it's all about. Number two, to let you see how similar it is to kind of a hybrid Excel and Access. SAS Visual Analytics is one of those products that's kind of morphing itself into that. And so you can honestly say to an employer, yes, I've worked with that application. You'll be probably the only person in the interview who's coming out entry level who's going to do that, unless maybe they've got a degree in computer information systems or something like this. But I would just want to give you an opportunity to try to use it. And again, it's over in Teradata University, and I've got the instructions there for you in a series of screenshots and then some tasks that I ask you to do. So what I'm trying to do is, on top of just kind of get you understanding how databases work and how a command or language like SQL works, or SQL, which is the basis of all of the languages that are used, or variants of it like Oracle. I'm trying to let you use some of the top products that are out there so that an employer gets the feeling that you've got some edge or some higher level set of skills than everybody who comes out of business school and can spreadsheet probably better than me. But if they're not comfortable working with databases, or they don't understand why we have them and use them, they are at a great loss, and that will put you in good stead. Now, I also have some extra credit instructions. Okay, so I give you some more of those check your understandings, a little more challenging. If you care to do some extra credit, So so I would be fine with, if you want to do that. Now, let's see what else I've got here for you. Then, yeah, you've got these exercises from the business intelligence text, from the Sharda text. And so I'm going to give you flex time on the week of the 6th and the 8th to do that. All right. And flex time means I'll be here. I'll be over at my office. And if you're working on something and you hit a snag, I'll try to help you out a little bit. Not too much, because I don't want to just, feed you guys through the process. You do have to, do a little work. And then on the 13th, the same story. And at that point, again, you're working on the projects, okay? And then, of course, then you have Thanksgiving week. And then week 14, I give you flex time to work on your final exam projects. And notice that check your understanding is due. Oracle assignment, if you do it, is due. The extra credit, if you do it, that's due. And then you have 4 uploads from the SAS project. So I'm going to have you do, part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4 that you'll be uploading, and that you'll see that in the instructions. Then, of course, I have you some more flex time to work on the finals. No assignments or anything like that, because it is limited activities week. And then the finals exams. And if you've had a class with me before, how I cover. I usually have you some stuff to do at the front end of finals. It's due at the start, and then I usually will just have some exams that you do at the back end, part B's. Now, if you want to work ahead and do all of these are just some exams. If you want to work ahead, you're welcome to do so. Okay. If you come in and think you can do the part, the hands-on part, if you will, and the exam parts in 2 hours, you're fooling yourself. It won't happen. So you'll be in real trouble. These are a series of, I don't think I have that many items on them. Okay. So don't let that throw you. And then it's pretty much, if you've had a class with me before. Now, if you take the exams on final exam period, I will be here. If you take the exams during that time, if you're remote, you're on your own. If you're in here, that's a different story. I can't guarantee if you're remote and something happens that you're off the hook. I just can't do that. But if you're in here, that's fine. And that's all I would say. You're probably smart to, once you get through some of the projects, if you budget your time wisely, then you'll have the time to see if you're going to run into any problems with these final exams. Let me pull B up for just a minute, because it's due at the end of the final exam period. Okay, pardon me, this is the start. And, okay, I've got a file upload for you. Let me back up here for a minute. All right. Let me get you down to the final exam. Okay, yeah. I apologize. Parts A and B, those are due at the start of the exam, final exam period. And the final exam period for this class is December the 13th, 2018 at 10:15. So it's going to go from 10:15 to 12:15. Now let me check that for just a moment and make sure. And I've got the final schedule posted over here, and then I have all the classes that I have highlighted. And let's see, we're 12:30 to 1:45. So indeed, our final exam period is Thursday the 13th from 10:15 to 12:15. So that should get you up to snuff in terms of what's going on with the course and some of the things that are coming up, and how to do some budgeting with your time. And if you've had a class with me before, this should be a fairly familiar theme. And part of this also with the flex time is just to throw you out there and say, you got some extra time, you got some time off, you don't have the class time. And this is another one of these for you to get to see, am I really ready for prime time? And can I manage my time? If I can't do it here, I probably won't do it when I go out to work. And so I give you a chance to find that out if you can do the time management and handle that part. Now, if you have questions about that, you could certainly contact me. Now, we're going to take a look again today over at chapter 17. So let's go ahead and grab the files from the Patrick materials, and we'll open it up, and we'll get the code for that, and then we'll work through it a little bit. Okay, I'm going to copy that, and I'll paste it. And it should be good to go. Here we go, and there's the access. Now, you'll also want to call, you will need to download your warehouse again. That's going to be the SQL fund file. And so I'll open that back up. And I'm going to make a copy of this and throw it out on the desktop. And we're going to do some work on chapter 17, excuse me. Now, chapter 17, it covers joining 3 or more tables, but it uses a term production tables, okay? And that's really at the start, over there on page 653. They talk about combining tables in a production database, all right? And it's when we talk about a production table, typically we're talking about a fact table, and we've discussed those that now we're going to use to produce some type of data sets or result sets. So again, the whole structure in a database, or the data warehouse, are going to be dimension tables. You're going to have some tables that are like numbers, things of that nature, that don't deal with variables or don't deal with phenomena related to business. They're more like, a set of just some numbers or something of that sort. We've played around with those a bit. I don't think you'll encounter those too much. And then with fact table, which is just nothing more than just a series of records of transactions of some type or the other, analogous to a general journal. And if you want to see that and kind of see a visible manifestation of it, again, feel free to go back and into the files and take a look at the that little access database, the baby database, Northwind Traders, which is a template, if you will. And when Microsoft came out with this product, they figured they figured a lot of amateurs would be using this. Little did they know the amateurs would turn out usually to be small business people who needed some form of database, and the products that were out there at the time were just too difficult for the average person to learn. And the reason is a fairly simple one. Databases, when I started working on databases long ago, when we wrote code, when we created a table, we had to reserve a physical array within the computer, within the machine. So we had to mix in some, depending on what language you're working in, but we'd also have to mix in some machine language. And so it's okay, in this part, or we're going to partition this area where we can store data. we're going to take this array and we're going to name it this, and we'll put these things, and we'll build the matrix, i.e. that table. And then you had to write what they called pointers, which was code language that would invoke what you wanted to call up. If your head's in the back, eyes are in the back of your head, trust me, so is everybody else. Okay, and when Access came around and the advent of a GUI and object-oriented programming and all that stuff, people, what Microsoft found was that almost everybody was using it when they thought that most of these people would be doing their, putting their recipes in here. They just didn't have a sense of the palpable need for people to have databases, because it just really didn't, people really just didn't see them, didn't use them. And then you get people who start owning their own businesses and entrepreneurs, and then you got the laptop computer, and a whole set of things came together in convergence that made databases important. So Access kind of became the standard. Of course, now it's again, it's for the realm of the amateurs or for the realm of the person who wants to see a template. And I said this many times, this is like learning to drive. Once you learn to drive a car, you can drive about anything depending on how much money you have, how much insurance you have, and how much trust somebody has in you. And there are some of you probably who will never learn how to operate a stick shift or a standard, and you'd be in peril if you had to use it. Others, you're used to the automatic. In my day, we learned how to use the so-called standard or the stick shift. And when I see people grinding gears and hear it as they go by the highway, I can usually figure, okay, I know pretty much the age range of that person, because it's maybe many of you have a sports car, a smaller car, and you had put standard transmission in it. If you did, it's got some advantages and disadvantages to it. Well, enough of that. So we're going to join tables together, okay? So we can get a production database, and they're going to walk us through a series of these steps. Now, over there on page 654, they walk you through those methods, okay, and then the issues of losing information, which happens over time. They talk about computer efficiency and standardizing the ways that tables are joined. Some of that's more theoretical, some of it's more practical, so we're going to play around with it a little bit. So let's go ahead and open up let's get that code, and we'll open up and we'll start to work. Now this is Oracle, okay, and this is the dual. And what we're going to do is we're going to create or replace a view, okay? And so we have this view here, section 1701A view, okay? And we've got, this is basically Oracle language, okay? And you can see that because it's create or replace. And the whole idea there, if you pop over to page 636, is you're gonna create a view, okay, or replace an existing view with those columns or those dimensions, and then we identify the two tables, employees and lunches, and then we have we join them where the employee ID equals the employee in A equals the employee ID in B, and then we add a third qualifier, and it's the lunch date equals November 16th, 2011, okay? And then the next thing is we're going to do, second thing is we're going to do a step B, okay? And then we'll do a step C and then a step D, and they show you the result table over here on page 657. Now what we're doing is we're joining three tables, and we're getting a production we've got a production table here, or a result table, whereby we can do some work. For example, if if you look at the bottom page 657, I can take the total price, the quantity, excuse me, times the total price, and I can come up with the price, the amount of money on the food for that food item for Susan Brown. Same thing with the fresh salad, same with the sandwich. Now, what I can also do is just simply invoke and call out how much we're going to spend, Susan Brown is going to spend based on those record entries. And so we've got some production we can do. Okay. Now, I wanted to look at, and now we've got on this very first one, we run into some issues in terms of the lunch date, and we'll just go ahead and we'll take a stab at it. And I'm going to go ahead and okay, and be lunch date, and I'm going to use a like statement here to end this off. Go back up here for a minute. I don't think it's going to execute for me because I think it's in a, it looks like to me it's in an Oracle and Access. All right, employee B and B lunch date, and I'm going to use the like clause, and then I'm going to use single quotes, and I'm going to put 11/16/2001. You can see I've got some notes here as I've tried to improvise through it, and we'll see what we get. I've got a feeling that when we hit those, we invoke that. We'll do the single quote here, and then that we may, and these may be some instructions, but let's just see what we get here. It may or may not run. I can't. Some of this stuff will run, some of it won't. But if I can walk you through it conceptually, then you understand what you're doing with it in the first place. And it's not always imperative that you get it to run. But if you understand what's going on underneath the hood, or you understand why you're running the query, programmers and simplification is going to take care of a lot of that stuff. So I'm going to select from, okay. And let's see what we get. Oh, well, how about that? Okay, now let me show you real quickly what I did. I'm even surprised at myself there. Okay, I used this stuff up here, this create or replace view. That's a comment, and so if you stick it in there, you're into your code. And I don't like that the author doesn't find a way to identify it as comment. If you're doing VBA or any other type of language, when you're doing comments, it will show you that you're indeed, these are comments not to be executed, just they're comments. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to select, you've been through this, the employee ID, the first name, the last name, and then from a table B, a lunch ID, and we identified table A, we identify table B, and then we use the where clause, and that's the join, okay? And we put in a second qualifier and be lunch date like 11/16/2001. Now, in the code there, in the code in the book, he has the lunch date equal 16 November 2011 in single quotes in the end. And when I ran it once, I had some issues, or it just didn't pop up. But this is an alternative if you want to use the single quotes, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, he used an equal, yeah, he did. He used an equal sign, and our old friend, the date format came up, and when I did it and bit me. So I said, okay, fair enough. I'm just going to call it like. You say, what's the, okay, so what are you trying to show me? When I use the term like, and I put quotes around the single quotes, I'm basically saying to the machine, I don't know if this is a number or it's a text or it's a set of characters that are numbers and text. I don't know what I got here. But if it's like anything like this, pull it up. And so the machine does. Does that make sense to everybody? It's kind of like a default thing. It's not too much different than, when I use an asterisk. If I were to say up here and select a dot asterisk, it means get everything. And I may not know how many, I may have no earthly idea how many dimensions, i.e. columns, i.e. variables, that I have in that table. But I'm just, by shorthand, I'm saying, give me everything you got there. The like is the same way, because the like doesn't mean I have to have an exact match. I can get something like it that resembles it. So that was a one little fix that it did there. Now let's look at the next one. So that's kind of, we'll call that 17.1a, and he likes to walk us through some of these multitask kinds of things. Dash 1a is that's what I'm calling. Now, let's go for a moment into the design view, the graphic user interface, okay? Because I want to show you something here. As I mentioned when I was talking about these check your understandings, I said there are going to be some times when it's just going to be a lot easier for you to work in the graphic user in environment, i.e. the object-oriented environment, the one with all the pictures, so that it's just going to be easier to do that than to write the code, because conceptually it's just easier for us to see the images. I understand these are two tables. I know that. I know the names of them. I know what the primary keys are. I can read. These are objects. And then down below here, of course, is kind of like the cutting board or whatever I'm going to do. And you'll notice I'm going to get the employee ID field from table A. And then I have a criterion. And it's the employee ID from table B. How do I know? Well, I put B in brackets, so there are no mistakes or problems. And then I put the period, and then I put the employee ID, and I spell it with the underscore, and then I put it inside of brackets. Now, when I mentioned earlier in a soliloquy in which all of you I know were sitting there going, I wish you'd just get on with this so we can get back to lunch, talking about pointers. When we got rid of the need for pointers and we were able to use a dot system, an address system, then it makes everything easier. And if this looks somewhat familiar, like okbu.edu, that's because it is. The same principle that we use for addresses on the internet to take it to a page is the same address system that we use inside of these machines to take us to data that's actually physically stored, or to code that we're going to use to grab a picture of the data. And then once we grab the picture, whatever treatment we're going to do with it. So that's what the dot's in there for. And then we didn't have to write all these codes. So it's pretty easy to come into the graphic user interface and get this done. And then we can see here's first name from table A, last name from table A, lunch ID from table B, and then lunch date. And then you'll notice here below I have like, and then the single quotes, and then I invoke the date, that string 11/16/2011. When you hear people use it, and you'll go out at work and you hear people talk about, okay, well, the string is this or string is that. All they're really saying is I've got some set of characters, numbers, special kinds of characters, spaces, or all of the above that combine into some type of whole. Okay? I forgot to include underscores. Oh, that's a special character. That's all that's going on there. So there's going to be some cases where, situations where it will be easier for you to use the graphic user interface than it will be to write the code. Now, let's go back up to the data sheet view, okay? And so we've done 17.1a. And we call, let's see, okay. And we need to do something here, and I apologize about that. On the name of this thing, we need to change the name. So right click it, okay, and put save. Okay, now let's, fiddle. Well, what do I want to do with this thing? Tell what I'm going to do. Move that up here. I'm going to save it and close it off. And then I'm going to come down and find it. And I called it 17.1a because we're going to have to assign a special name to it in order to do the, and where are you, my friend? Here's the query. Here's the query. Here, it's the first query, 17.1a. Okay. Now, click copy. Okay, and then paste it, and it'll give you a copy of that. All right. Now, what I'm going to do with this copy is I'm just going to simply I'm going to rename it. You see what I'm doing here, everybody? Okay, and I'm going to rename it, and they want us to call it SEC 1701. Pardon me. 1701 A, and then they've got an underscore, I think. So it's SEC 1701 A underscore view. So that's, you say, now why are we doing this? Well, if you look at the next slug of code, you've got, I prefer to call it a shot glass or perhaps a decanter, but that's just me. But I've got select from the 1701A view, and so he's expecting us to name it this, okay? Because we're going to be pulling data from it. So I've got SEC 1701A underscore view. All right, good. Now I'm ready to work on the second piece of this. Again, we're creating tables, and then we're going to combine them all. And this will probably cover most of the, it's going to cover most of the chapter, with the only exception that I'm going to be doing some manipulation of the data in order to go ahead and make it a true production table. Let's stay there for a minute, and let's go back. Well, let's go back to 17.1a, the first one, and let's export it to Excel. Okay, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. And we'll export the data. We don't want this, we don't want the format and stuff, so I'm going to click OK. And I'll save the export steps. And I'll save the export. And we should find it down on our desktop somewhere here. And I probably didn't save it where I should have. All right. Unless it's in a little baby form. Okay, I'll go back up here and just export it again. Yep. I'm going to try it again and export Excel. Okay, and I've got the file name. Oh, I see what I did. I put it down in my documents, put it up on your desktop. I apologize. And I'll show you what I'm talking about real simply. Instead of walking us through all these issues just to show a pretty simple concept. And so I'm going to save it on my desktop. I'm okay. I'll close it off, and we'll go down to the desktop now, and we'll take a peek. And there it is, 17A. Now, it's not going to look like what you're used to seeing because it's an exported object. Once you open it up, the Excel will invoke. You said, okay, you're going to show us something about production databases, okay? And we've got these, we got the lunch ID, and we got the last name, first name, employee, all right? Now, I'll just scoot this back over here. And let's just go ahead and get everybody in the middle here so they look nice and we can see them. Okay? Same thing with these. We'll put them, oh, they're over to the left. Now, let's say that we have a lunch price, okay? Underscore, and I'm going to put it here in row 1, lunch underscore price. All right? Now, and let's say that let's just make them in a descending, we'll make this as 25 bucks. We'll come down here and make this 30 bucks. And we won't even put the dollars into it. We'll just do that because I want to show you what we're talking about. We'll talk about production. It's a very simple, sounds all complex, but it's really not. Now, because I have, watch over here, all right, I have these columns B and C are dimensional columns, meaning I have name, first and last, okay? Then I have an ID column or an identifier column in terms of the employee ID, all right? And then I also have another identifier in terms of the lunch or the transaction. So I have an ID for the transaction, which is the lunch. I have an ID for the person, okay? So far I've got, I have the same essential elements I would have if I'm watching a process unfold, okay? I would probably even have a date in here that would tell me when that process started. And then I have the lunch price. So if I want to find out total spent, it's simple. Okay? And I'll do total underscore spent. And it's simple. I can just, I multiply these two together. Okay? And I'll make sure that I want to stay in the column, so I'll put a $sign in front of I'll do some relative cell referencing, $sign there, boom, and I come down. I drag and drop, okay? Now, I've just turned this into a production table because it shows me how much money I spent, okay, on each of these lunches. If I wanted to, I can filter this and look at Susan Brown or any set or number of these people. You with me? I can do numerical computation. So production table is going to tell you typically who, what, when, where. The only thing that's missing from this would be the when. And we would have a column in between. We could have a column in between the E and F. We could have a lunch date column. So put a lunch underscore date. And then we have a true then we have a true production table. Simplistic that it is, but that's what the people mean by a production table. You say, well, that's odd. No, it's not if you think about what we're doing. We've got a warehouse. We use queries to extract the data. We get a report or some kind of data set view. And now we want to do something with it. And the something we're going to do with it is typically going to be some kind of mathematical operation. Or I might even do some more extractive work, say like filtering these records. But now I can produce something that I can use. And that's really all it's about. And chapter 17 walks you through just the process in step B there of creating that. You're going to create the 1701B view. and I'm looking at the bottom page 686. You could also look at the you could look at the code. Your understanding is just important. You know, a monkey can come in here and input the code. It's that you understand. So we create, now we're going to we create 1701A, then we'll create 1701B, okay? Then we create 1701C, okay? Now, here's where we start to do some of the production work. Notice here now that I use numeric data. I perform an operation. Now, anytime I take two tables or more and I perform an operation on any of the dimensions, I've got a production table, okay? If I have all of these stored in a database, which I could easily do, in other words, every one of these result sets like I've got down here in this Excel, or the result set you would get by running these queries, I can stick them into a production database and identify each table with some type of give it an identifier or primary keys for every single row. Then I'm ready to go in, and I'd probably go ahead and use a primary key of some type that would be like a pseudonym or an alias that I could use to tie the production tables together. Of course, I would do that. And now we've got the view, the order, we order by, and then the food. Okay. So that's really all that's going on. And the whole idea is to get the result table at the bottom of page 657 and the top of 658. That's all we're, page 657. I can look at the quantities for each record. The quantity, I can add up the total quantity. I can add up the grand total for the prices. I can come across horizontally. I can get the quantity times the total price, so I have a total price per record. I could compute an average, a mean, a median, standard deviation where I want to. I can put that into graphic graphic data, like a chart, or I could put in a chart, probably a bar chart. And if I wanted to, I could throw it into a pivot table, okay, and do some work with it, which is why you'll hear me say over and over, other than Solver in Excel, the pivot table is the most powerful tool. And the one thing that Solver has beyond pivot table is the ability to take some of those constraints. All right, you could even take the desired outcome and use a random generator like RAND between or the RAND function to just simulate what you get. Then take all of those results, chart them, and if they look like a bell-shaped curve, you're dealing with something, you get something somewhat normal. If they don't look like that, then you're talking about a different type of data distribution. That's kind of how that all ties itself in. And now, a lot of the work and thought work that goes into that is going to already be done for you. When you go through the SAS visual analytics exercise, take a look and pay heed to the fact that it has some database function elements, okay? And it also has elements like a spreadsheet. And it looks very much like a pivot table. And the only thing there there's not a randomization. I don't think it has a randomization tool, but it's about as good as it gets in trying to say, okay, I've got this whole set of records. What do I do with them? Now, when we looked at 16 and the end of 16, chapter 16, and I'll just reference the page for you real quickly. Over on page 645, okay, when people talk about big data, okay, that query okay, and at the bottom page 644, and the GUI for it, and then all those, and then the result sets over on 645, pardon me, is something that we can use to look for patterns. And so when you hear people talk about big data, you're looking for patterns. When you do production work like we're doing with this, you're looking more for numeric expressions of some type that are applicable. And the only okay, I'm putting it this way. If you get in the car today and you drive east, you'll probably see some really pretty foliage. You look at the tree and go, oh man, there's some yellow, some red. At that point, you're dealing with big data. Now, if you, as you go by, you can click your phone and it will tell you how many leaves are there total, how many are of each shade and pigment. Now you've got a production database, because you can say, well, okay, what's the average number of yellow leaves? What's the average number of red leaves, etc. And that's the simplest and easiest way to tell you how it works. And the difference between them is really, it's a matter of scale. And as we've talked about, it's more a matter of philosophy in terms of trying to leverage the law of big numbers versus trying to use an extractive approach. And most firms are going to do both. Now, this makes no sense, I know, in a lot of ways. But there was stuff when I was in business school and people were telling me this and this, and it made no sense until I got out there and go, oh, now I see. I understand. I've got 1 million clients. I'm State Farm. I've got 10 million clients. 3 million of them are new. I'm just throwing out numbers, okay? Where are those 3 million people from? Well, I'm going to have to map them. And I'm going to look to see. And if they look, and if the new clients come from a particular part of the country, I'm going, why would that be? Why would I? What is it about that part of the, and that's that kind of more expansive thinking that will typically go on at an upper level. But if you're even a lower level employee, you're thinking like that. It's called enterprise thinking. Okay, well, enough of that. And again, I could walk you through. Now, over on page 658, okay? And you say, we're not going to put a lot of queries in here. It's okay. I have a key thing up there for you, and you can look, and I would challenge you, when I load some of those keys up, take a look at them and try to look and say, what were they doing there? You should, at this point, be able to look at something and go, okay. Now, I'll give you an example. Let's look at 17.2. Now, I believe that except for everyone who comes into class, I don't know, there seems to be a tongue depressor that's given to everybody, or your tongue is cut out or disabled because people don't seem to be answering questions, so I've quit asking. But when you're at work, if your boss asks a question, I hope you'll answer. Don't be shy. Even if your answer is kind of wrong, if you're working for a reasonable person, you're going to say, oh, here's someone who's thinking. Or the other people are checking for, did Amazon deliver my shoes, or is my girlfriend mad at me, or whatever. Okay, let's look at that one. I know I've got 3 tables I'm dealing with. How do I know? I've got table A, I've got table D, and I've got table C, because I use a pseudonym for those 3 tables. So I'm dealing with 3 tables, okay? I know the fields within those tables because of the suffix, the prefixes of the table, the dot, and the first name. Okay, so far. And then I encounter a very interesting creature here that's in double quotes, okay? And I have an operation. Now you're going to see something in here, and you see the NVL, okay? For Access SQL, that's an NV, and that means no nulls. That's Oracle's function saying if it has a null value, say bye-bye. I don't want any null values. I want only complete values. And I'm trying to remember what page all those numeric functions are on, but if you want to check me out, go over and take a look. And so I'm going to take the price, okay, plus a price increase, okay, and 0.10 times and times the quantity, okay, and I'm going to call it total price. Now notice there I've got the equations balanced. Pardon me, the parentheses balanced. I got 3 going to the right, three going to the right, 3 going to the left, and then I use a column alias, okay, and I've got and then I identify tables A, B, C, and D. You go, wait a minute, what? Well, I went ahead and interjected table B in there. And then as long as I've identified it before I run through the query, I'm in good shape. So I now have tables A, B, C, and D. I use the A, C, D combination. And then I've got A, B, C, and D. And I've got a simple where statement. And then the lunch date. And I'm getting everything for the 16th of November. And I'm just keep adding in some qualifiers. I'm filtering the records some more. And then I order them. And then I get and identify table D again as description. And I'm good. And away I go. And that's a fairly complex query. The only thing in there that you haven't seen would be the NVL, which is for access, it's NV, no nulls. So I get rid of the nulls. But you should be able to kind of see this. Now, what I learned a long time ago when I worked for some folks that would, I had a supervisor come, could you run this, do this and this and this? I learned to sit down and kind of write out what they were after, and then try to relate that to a table or to a field, then go in, and we didn't have the graphic user interface. We wrote the programming and prayed and hoped for the best. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And I've still got the old Hollerith cards from my dissertation when I wrote it. And I've got about 6 boxes of these Hollerith cards, which are punch cards. And I kept them in fear that I'd done something wrong. But the program worked. But I had many 3 o'clock in the morning foray over at the physical science building in OU, where there'd be some engineer in front of me, and he'd have big boxes and run these programs, and the machine, the card reader would stop, and your heart stopped with it because you knew then it's not working. And now today everyone has their laptop. They're working with it's a much different world. Okay. So we should be able just to take a look at it. Now, what makes this a production operation is right here, okay, where I'm performing an operation, some type of mathematical operation, and that's what makes it a production table. The rest, and you can work on some of these if you care to. Just be careful. Just take care if you do it, that when they tell you name this table, or they infer name a table, whatever you get, in name it this view or that view, because when you do the next step, it's not going to work for you. But I think conceptually you've got it. Some of the other conceptual material in 17 that I think is important for you to see is they talk about inner joins, okay, and some steps to avoid losing steps to avoid the loss of data, okay, and it's quite easy for us, as he mentions there, when we're stringing a bunch of data together, we're stringing a bunch of tables together, it's easy to lose a dimension or a column. So to me, this is the land of I have something in front of me that shows me the original tables with their columns and primary keys, so I make sure something that doesn't get lost. If you have 3 tables of 150,000 records and you run one of these queries and you just happen to leave out the street address, you get to run it again. And depending on your capabilities, that could be a 45-minute operation. It could be a 2-minute operation. It just depends. If you have limited capabilities, you've got to be absolutely certain you do that. Or even worse is some numeric figure, like a price change or something like that, or a discount that you should have included. Then he talks about, left and right outer joins. We've talked about what those mean. The right join, I'm getting everything on the child of the right-hand side, as well as wherever they match. On the left join, it's just the opposite. He says a full outer join preserves all the information, okay? And remember the difference between union and union all. Union gets rid of duplicate records. Union all saves them. People that work with databases tend to be pack rats at some level or the other. And, at our house, we've got Christmas stuff we've got Christmas stuff we bought and used once. We could have I'd probably be a rich man if I sold all my Christmas stuff, because my wife is a Christmas freak and we're always over at the Christmas store and we'll see, okay, let's get it. And then we forgot we even have a database so that we have now year by year the theme we're going to use. It'll be purple or white or red or whatever. And we have boxes and numbers and all this stuff, and we still lose stuff. So let that be a lesson to you. I wish I could say it was my collection of Lamborghinis, but it's not. But someone in the world's got to be rich. Why couldn't it have been me? But no, it's better, because if I'd been rich, I'd have become a master criminal and conquered the world. So the Lord preserved everyone. Okay. And he walks you through there and those, he shows you some of the code for those. We've talked some about indexes before. Standardizing the way the tables are joined, that's over on page 666. It would be for sure 666, that figures. You don't have to worry about that as much, because the days of the amateur programmer working at a big company and fiddling around, if you are, you probably have a computer science degree and someone's giving you the security clearance to do it. If you're in there fiddling around with it and you're not, you will probably find yourself in some real hot water. So, and much of this now is, many of the products are automated, so they standardize how that, so you can basically customize the joining of tables. So when a DBA, a database administrator, goes in there, they kind of see and they know what to expect. Now, the final part of chapter 17, and that's the one that you have to be careful about, and it's called ad hoc reporting. What do the authors mean by that? What they mean is, we just got a database and we've got about 1,000, maybe 10,000 different queries we're going to run just because we can do it now. Okay? And so you'll have people running queries with all kinds of variables and faulty production data just because they can do it. Okay? And that's a waste of time and energy and resources. The biggest problem, okay, that we're going to have with the so-called big data and these tools to work with them is going to be people who will want to sit around and forever go, well, what if this or what if that, or gee, I wonder how many people in Portland, okay, have a 1957 Chevy that's red, and they've read I don't know, maybe they've read Huckleberry Finn, and gee, that's the kind of weirdness that you can fall into and someone will work all night to run a query like that. Is of no absolute value. So query discipline is absolutely, totally essential. And that's why I say when I go work with a client, I tell them, what are the 5 things I need to know? What's your KPI, the key performance indicators? And if you can't tell me that, and you have a database that's pretty powerful, many of the churches out here use one from a company called AWS, and it's a very powerful database. And often, and I'm not criticizing those good people, they love the Lord and they're doing their best. It's often like putting a Camaro in the hands of a 9-year-old. Bad things are going to happen, and you're going to have stuff scattered everywhere. And so that idea of query discipline is exceptionally important. And so you have to be careful about ad hoc reporting for the simple reason, you're just kind of pulling out, let's just run this and this. You never know. My last exercise, the last time I did what's the 5 things you need to know? I had a pastor and his staff of 5 sitting around, and we came up with 63 things they needed to know every day. And I said, you don't have 1 million members and you don't have 1,000 staff. So let's cull this down just a hair, okay? What do you need to know, okay? And one of them, of course, I always have someone in there. He'll go, well, who are the sheep and who are the goats? And I've always got one of those. And that's fun to know. Who's saved, who's lost. Okay? But that's some good wisdom there for us to put under our hood. Well, thank you, folks. I appreciate it. We're not too bad. We started a little early. We're about 1:40. And you can upload that, or I have 17. Now, again, as I have admonished you, all right, as my disciples, somewhat, you're semi-disciples, let's put it like that, okay? And you'll be the first people to turn on me when the crowd says, Cruz is fine. You won't even hang around the fire. You'll be gone. You'll probably be with the crowd throwing stones. But my semi-disciples, let me say this. When I upload some of these, like the 1314 done or other files like those, take a look through them and try to understand what they're telling you. And then if you really want to challenge yourself, go try to find them in the textbook or in those text files that he provides us. Thank you so much, and I will see you folks on Tuesday. And you can upload whatever you got here. I think I've got a 17A and 18. So if you've done your own little bit, 16A and 17, if you've done your own little work, you want to upload it, feel free. Okay? Don't regret it and take 23 points off just because I lured you into it. Thank you much. Anybody have a question I can help you with? That drops over. I'm sorry.